are some of his connections to these big tech figures that we've talked about earlier, whether it's Elon Musk or figures that are, also part of the so-called PayPal mafia, David Sachs being the crypto NAA czar, for example, and someone like JD Vance having relatively close proximity to Peter Thiel, someone at a top HHS position, Jim O'Neill, also very close to Peter Thiel, who has, I would argue, wildly different views than Robert F. Kennedy, who's supposed to lead HHS, especially in terms of deregulation, biotech, and mRNA technology. What are these things ultimately going to result in? And I would, consider people to consider those connections, and also consider that there's a high likelihood, just like in the first term, that there will be a lot of, deregulation in over the next 4 years. And I'm sure a lot of people will be happy about that. But I think some people that voted for Trump may not be, particularly in the Make America Healthy Again movement, where deregulation at the FDA, for example, could result in a flooding of the market with mRNA products, which are very controversial with a significant segment of Trump's base, for example. Or, when Trump was in office the first time, he deregulated biotech and agriculture pretty significantly. A lot of people in that same Make America Healthy Again movement are not really into, a proliferation of GMO crops in the food supply, for example, and sort of finger them as a causative agent in the chronic disease epidemic that MAHA, that particular movement, was really based around. And I would, I think a lot has been said by myself and also by others about sort of, people have probably noticed Palantir's stock performance. I think it's very likely that over the next 4 years, Palantir will become an even more important government contractor, considering that a lot of people that are prominent Palantir investors or co-founders have attached themselves in various ways, either to the Trump campaign as donors or occupying important posts in the administration. So Palantir, again, is sort of the engine that a lot of this, the surveillance state, really runs on. And I think people should really educate themselves about it, especially if what I talked about earlier as it relates to predictive policing and predictive health and predicting pandemics before it happens and all of that is concerning to you. Again, right, 4 years, it's hard to know exactly what's going to happen. But I think those are pretty reliable markers we can look for. And sort of this, I think it's likely that there's going to be an increase in, biometric digital ID. Trump has sort of marketed this as a way to stop mass migration. The dialectics are different, but it's sort of a policy that's being marketed all over the world. Depending on the country, the sales pitch is different, but ultimately that policy is being marketed, and in the push into digital assets, I think, is also happening globally. And I think Trump made it very clear that he was going to be very focused on that. And I don't think there's any reason to doubt that particular promise.
And as you look at the tech people that Trump has amassed around him, do you think that they are better understood as oligarchs making a play to be as close to power as they can? Or do you share some of the enthusiasm around these are the best operators of our generation here to help make the government more efficient?
Yeah, I personally am of the view that they're oligarchs that are interested in king-making markets. I think that's particularly true of someone like David Sachs, who's going to be the crypto AI czar and doesn't have to divest from any of his, investments or other, potential conflicts of interest with some of the firms that he'll be involved in overseeing or deciding regulation on. And when you have that type of power, you can easily king make and pick and choose companies that you want to see win, right? And so you kind of have to wonder if this is really going to be a free market type of situation, as a lot of people would like it to be, because when you have that type of centralized power sort of deciding who wins and who doesn't, and having only OpenAI and Oracle, for example, in this recent announcement, those are very big companies. They're likely to only get bigger should there be a more decentralized landscape in these industries that are so important to foster competition? Or are we getting close to a quasi, monopoly model in certain fields of big tech? And I think that could be potentially problematic and something to look at, especially when you consider that there have been, statements made by members of the quote unquote PayPal mafia that free market competition is for losers and that companies should find a niche and corner that market and essentially build a monopoly or quasi monopoly. And some of those people have done that in direct collaboration with the national security state, as is the case of Palantir, for example, which was created with CIA and In-Q-Tel's direct involvement, and has very significant CIA connections from its origins to now. So if you're building a quasi-monopoly and you don't like free market competition and you're going to partner, with the most powerful and unaccountable parts of the state in that way, what does that ultimately mean? And is this, going to be the free market utopia that we're being sold, or, is something else going to happen?